Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. Also, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you're off to a good start. My name is Jomnak Pitaks. I'm a technical advisor for health and environment at FHI 360 based in Bangkok, Thailand. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first global webinar in a learning series on building a common understanding of the Gender Climate Nutrition Nexus, co-organized by the Scaling Up Nutrition Civil Society Network, or SUN-CSN, and FHI 360, and supported by GIZ and the Government of Ireland. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are truly encouraged by the strong interest from all of you working across agriculture, community development, nutrition, gender equality, climate resilience, and health. But before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar has interpretation service in 3 languages. Right now, everyone is on original audio by default. And if you prefer to listen in another language, please select the channel for that language. So you have the option of English, Spanish, or French. You can switch channels anytime using the globe icon at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. When you click the icon, you will see a total of 4 channels, including original audio plus the 3 languages. We also want to note that this session is being recorded and will be shared with registered participants. Now, just to set the scene for our webinar today, the objective of this global webinar is to build a shared understanding of how gender equality, climate change, and nutrition are interconnected, and to introduce practical ways to move from concept to action. For many women and girls, especially those involved in agriculture, climate shocks are not abstract future risks. Droughts, floods, and heat directly affect food availability, workloads, household diets, and access to health and nutrition services. When climate stress increases, women's workloads often rise, diets often less diverse, health and nutrition services are disrupted, and existing gender inequalities widen. At the same time, many women face barriers to land, finance, climate resilience technologies, social protections, and decision-making power, limiting their ability to adapt despite their central role in food system, nutrition, and community resilience. This learning series starts from that reality. Rather than looking at gender, climate, or nutrition in isolation, we will use practical, globally tested frameworks to understand how climate risks affect food, health, and households, and to identify realistic entry points for action. Today marks the start of a learning journey. Our aim is not to cover everything at once, but to build a shared understanding, create a common language across sectors, and lay the foundation for deeper learning through future webinars, the upcoming Vietnam Learning Visit, follow-up country work, and a community of practice. This conversation is especially timely as this year is the International Year of the Women Farmer, an opportunity to recognize women's leadership while addressing the structural barriers that continue to limit their potential. It is now my great pleasure to invite our opening speaker, Dr. Ramya Ambikapati. Ramya is a scientist in food, environment, and consumer behavior at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and the International Center for Tropical Agriculture. She is a nutrition scientist whose work focuses on food systems, gender, and equity across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And she contributed to a high-level panel of experts report on strengthening urban and peri-urban food system. Ramya, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Can I share my screen?
It's coming, Ramya.
Um, do you have the right display?
This is it's not the full screen
Uh-huh.
as yet.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Fantastic. Let's see. Hi, everybody. I'm very thrilled to be doing the opening remarks for this fantastic webinar and the learning journey. So this will be the first webinar. Feel free to introduce yourself, where you're from. We'll make it a bit more interactive just to get the energy going. We have a really great lineup today. So I'm going to ask a few questions once we get started. So feel free to put your answers in the chat. The purpose of this, the learning journey is a three-phase approach, and it's there's a pre-visit and where the global webinars, which is what you're part of today, and there'll be a Vietnam visit in May, and then followed by country work and community practice and global advocacy. The point of these webinars is to build momentum, build action, how we can translate concepts to actually advocacy. So starting with a few questions, are you ready? You can feel free to put it in your chat. Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I tell you the different words. When you hear the word youth, what comes to your mind? Future. Okay, that's great. Change, energy, young people. Who do you imagine? Yes, women, great. When you think of the word caregiver, who comes to your mind? Mother, parents, women. Great question. Great answers. We often think about women. And then when you think of farmer, who comes to your mind? What is the first thought comes to your mind? Poor, old men. Yes. Great. Thank you. Thank you for all these thoughts. So nearly half of the farmers around the world are women, and in some parts it's more, it's about 50-50%. It's about 40% globally are women. But when we think about farmers, we always think about women or they're poor. They are indeed poor. If you look at the actual statistics, it's more poverty among smallholder farmers, and women tend to be owning less farm. So when we think about these perceptions, like, with the year of international farmer, when we think about the women farmer, when we think about the word farmer, we're not thinking about women. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through this learning journey, is to change our own paradigms, change our own minds so we can make this global advocacy happen. Men are more likely to have land ownership rights than women. So this is a plot where you see on the y-axis is percent of men owning land versus on the x-axis is the percent of women owning land. And you see across, if they're below the diagonal line, that's more women owning land. But what you see is most of the countries are above the diagonal line, meaning more men are owning land compared to women, despite women being 40% of the farmers. When you look at global food security, you see more gender gaps. Especially in Latin America and in some parts of Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as parts of Southeast Asia um, in, in, in the Southeast Asia part. So Thailand and Laos and Vietnam, you see that as well. So this inequality extends not just for land ownership, but also for food security. So throughout the agri-food systems, these gaps accumulate. Quick question. Which continent has the highest gender gap in food security? Any any takers? Any answers? Africa, Asia, Africa. Okay. It is actually Latin America. There was one answer that said Latin America, and that Latin America is the correct answer. In terms of actual food insecurity numbers, Africa has the highest, followed by Latin America. But in terms of gap between food security among women and food security among men, it's actually Latin America. Yeah, it's very surprising, some of these stats and the ground reality. We really have to change our paradigms in what we think of where food security lies and who has them, which continent has them. Yeah, a little bit of surprise. Yeah, yeah. And then when we think, and then this statistics always like strikes me. All of these, by the way, are from the global report on state of the women in agri-food systems, and they also have a regional report. It's a fantastic report. I highly encourage everyone to take a look at it. Globally, we have one third of women experiencing physical and sexual violence. So this is reported. It's actually the numbers are much, much higher. So when we think about nutrition, when we think about, and often I see that in maternal child nutrition programs, women are often instrumentalized to provide nutrition. And if you're getting beaten and sexually abused in your house, how are women supposed to be as mothers to deliver on child nutrition if you're getting beaten every day? So really central, like making women central of this, making gender relations central to this is the key to really address this nexus. So today, we'll be talking. So today we'll be talking about some of the gaps that we'll be addressing, siloed policies across different sectors, the lack of gender disaggregated data, limited recognition, and like as I showed you before, women are not being recognized as farmers, as youth, but they're often seen as caregivers. So how could we change these perceptions and paradigms and norms within ourselves and within the communities we work in? I'm talking about power dynamics. That's one of the key things we will talk about in this global webinars, forthcoming webinars. One of the key things that I want you to keep in mind as you go through this year-long journey is that gender does not equal women. It also includes men. In a lot of the settings, men are just as disempowered, especially younger men that don't have a lot of opportunities to really succeed. Men are also very important for child and women nutrition. So really think about what is the role of men as fathers, as husbands? How can they deliver towards child and maternal nutrition is also very, very key under climate change. And then the other thing that I want to really emphasize is intersecting identities. Often, a poor rural women, a poor rural indigenous women, women with the disabilities, they all have different needs and different sort of power dynamics that really changes how we perceive them, what kind of access they have. And these actually translate to material outcomes. It could be capital, it could be financial capital, but it could also be nutritional status and health outcomes as well. So intersecting identities are key. So these two things should be in the back of your mind as you go through this learning journey. So this year is really fantastic. It's the International Year of the Women Farmer. We're going to really have this wonderful platform to really recognize, but also change our own perception, create policy momentum, and then translate that into action um, and really, really fundamentally rethinking how we approach food system transformation with women and gender dynamics, power dynamics at the heart of the transformation. So I invite you all to ask lots of questions. Please be engaging. Please put a lot of comments. Please share your thoughts. Please share your experience. We want to create a community with this opening global webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramya, for setting such a strong and inspiring foundation for our discussion today. Really appreciate it. And it's very early your time as well. So thank you so much again. We will now move to our spotlight presentation. I'm pleased to invite Marlene Ashoki, Global Policy Lead for Climate Justice at CARE International, who will share insights from CARE's Climate Justice Pathways approach. This framework highlights how power, agency, social norms, and institutions shape vulnerability, and why shifting these dynamics is essential for lasting climate and nutrition outcomes. This perspective is important because it reminds us that climate and nutrition challenges are not only technical issues, but also social and political ones. over to you, please. Marlene, thank you so much. You have the floor. Marlene, I'm not sure if you're speaking. We can see your presentation, but we cannot hear you as yet.
Thank you. I think you can hear me now. So
Yes. Yes.
thank you, Dom, and thank you, Ram, for setting beautiful scene on the different presentation that you just showed us. And I'm also very happy to see some familiar faces and names in today's call. And today I will be sharing CARE's climate justice pathways and how CARE applies power analysis, agency, and inclusive decision making to strengthen community resilience and also showcase some examples of what this really means in practical on nutritional outcome. And just to start us off, I will show us one of our, you know, my slide is not moving. Let me just see if there's a problem here. The theory of change of how we are implementing this. And also, I will be using this opportunity to share some of the approaches, tools, and materials that we use to enhance or build resilience in the different work that we're doing, including our programs around health and nutrition. So this is just a quick path theory of change sort of that shows the different pathways of our programming. And our aim basically is to ensure that the poorest and most marginalized, particularly our focus at CARE is women and girls, have improved their well-being and enjoy their human rights due to increased resilience to climate change, increased equality, and of course, working towards the climate action of keeping the limited global goal rise to 1.5. And our pathway one is mostly what we do a lot in over 122 countries where CARE has presence globally. It's more about increasing capacities and assets of the people of all genders, of the communities that we are working with. And this one entails more around the different programs that CARE country offices are implementing, on climate resilient livelihoods and sustainable agriculture, use of sustainable energy, climate information and climate action, financial services to empower and economy to empower women in different settings and different programs. Live in climate resilience housing, resilient water systems, protected by functioning and climate disaster management structures. So this is more of our direct program implementation, the main aim is just to challenge the norms and relations and behaviors for increased equality, especially for women and girls, and engage in decision-making processes, ensure that we build agency and power for the women and girls that we are working with in different programs to ensure that they have the voice in different spaces that they're in to engage in decision-making processes at different levels, but also at household level when it comes to preparing nutrition-efficient foods for their families. And also ensure that these groups are able to advocate for their rights in the different spaces. And our work also is also to ensure that we are engaging men and boys while strengthening the women and girls' roles in different capacities in the different projects that we are working in. And the second pathway that is also, feeding into the pathway one is more of power holding, improving enabling environments in the different regions and spaces. And pathway three is more now where we are engaging with different civil society, like-minded organizations and social movements in the work of different to empower the people of El Dorado to become active citizens at the local level, at the national level, region, global, to ensure that what they are doing, the good work they're doing, and they're also able to voice the different challenges that is not enabling them to be able to get where they are. This helps in challenging the norms, relations, and behaviors for increased equality, connecting with other climate and social movements and civil society in like-minded programs like what we do, for example, under the food, water, nutrition, and particularly the different nutrition and agriculture projects that we're implementing, applying the different strength and organizational capacity and also gender transformative capacity. And now, maybe just moving now into more specific engagement around the different tools and approaches that we use. I don't know if you can still see my screen. Yes.
We can still
Okay, no
see
problem.
the theory of change slide, Marlene.
Okay. Just trying to move this to the next slide. I don't know why it's not responding, but so moving on to the next slide and looking at how do we do this in practice, basically, moving from now what our intention on our our theory of change and the different pathways, how they connect. How do we employ this directly in the different programmings that we implement? So we apply different tools and approaches to strengthen community resilience by directly addressing the root causes of vulnerability, which is the unequal power relations, gender inequality, poor governance, and this really is our vision to help us eradicate poverty and ensure that women and girls live in dignity. So CARE's approach integrates this resilience across the different sectors of our work by focusing on three key areas: empowering the marginalized groups, especially women and girls, engaging men and boys, to exercise agency, transforming power structures to be more accountable, to the different plans, policies, and decisions that the governments take, but also facilitating inclusive bottom-up decision-making processes using the different tools and approaches that CARE has developed over time. And some of these tools are, for example, the community-based adaptation. In my coming presentation, I'll be going more into detail of this. So the community-based adaptation approaches, the Farmer Field Business School. And the Farmer Field Business School is one of the approach that we use mostly in our nutrition focused projects, and I will be showing how we do that. Also around the different programs that we implement on climate and also the others. One of the first key things that we also undertake is the climate vulnerability capacity assessment that helps us to understand the different vulnerabilities, understanding the context, showing or seeing where the power is and what communities can do and what support is really needed. And also we use different scorecards to hold different power or government agencies and partners, accountable to the different programs that they're implementing together with the partners. And finally, the Village Saving and Loss Association. So these are some of the tools and approaches that we use that really help us ensure that Our programs are inclusive and helps us to really ensure we're building, strengthening resilience to the different community and places where we're working. So the first maybe approach that I would showcase is the agency and power analysis. So here is basically how do we ensure that we're building confidence and self-esteem of the different groups and aspirations, to share knowledge, skills and capabilities, in the different formal spaces that women and girls actually engage. And also engaging in changing relations, the power relations through which people live their lives through, the different intimate relations and social networks, and also group membership and activism and citizen and market negotiation. So how do we change relations in a formal sphere around this? And how do we transform structures that do not enable gender equality or enabling environment for women and girls to actively and meaningfully participate in the different work and programs, but also the local and sub-local and national programming due to the different discriminatory social norms, customs, values, and also laws and policies and procedures that are not helping the women and girls transform or move to the next level that is enabling and help them build the resilience and also capacity and economic power to engage. So this is our basically our power analysis around the agency. And for care, we see that poverty, because our aim is really to eradicate for poverty. Poverty and vulnerability are sustained by unequal power relations. And this applies in the different regions, local, sublocal, national, and moving to regional and also at the global level. And if I'm referring to the global level, I'll be referring, for example, to the different spaces that we engage on climate, on food security, and other key areas. And we do know, for example, and we see how different bodies, if it's UNFCCC seeking to see how women are participating in that decision-making process at the global level. And now we do have the 9-year gender action plan, for example, but that is at the top. But then when you come at the local level, how do we address the power imbalances at the local level? And so care approach goes beyond simply helping people to bounce back, but it aims to transform the underlying structures that make people vulnerable. This involves analyzing who holds power, who is excluded, and how local institutions, both formal and informal, functions. And also another approach is around how empowering women and marginalized groups. So we focus especially on building the agency of women and girls, recognizing they are disproportionately affected by climate change, by disasters, and they also have the unpaid care role that they do at home. And this includes strengthening their control over productive assets, so providing different trainings and helping influence the different policy environments, enhancing their voices in public spaces, and using the different tools. For example, the CBCA helps build confidence while in the process and improving their ability to make decisions, even within the household and community, so that we just don't have women being just present in engagement at these levels, but also actively engaging and being able to make and take decisions. So some of the approaches that we use to enhance inclusive decision making for resilience, especially, we promote inclusive governance as core component of resilience, ensuring that the women and girls or communities that we're working with affected by shocks have a voice in shaping the solutions using different tools. So the first one, and this is, we have a full project, for example, on community-based adaptation, uh, where it uses the CBA to ensure that planning is led by local knowledge and priorities. And this involves creating community adaptation action plans, community adaptation health and nutrition plans, where communities really identify their own risks and decide on appropriate responses. And some of these programs are implemented across the southern region, East Africa, and also the central. We do use a lot of community scorecards to help facilitate dialogues, enhance accountability, and strengthen the relationship between service users, service providers, and also access improved nutrition services that we use. And for a lot of our climate programming, we employ climate vulnerability capacity analysis tool that really helps us have a 360 view analysis of the problem or the issue, the communities prioritizing the different problems or climate hazards, and analyze the information at community level, vulnerabilities to capacities for climate change. And finally, we use farmer field business school, particularly this one for our nutrition, food, water, and nutrition programs that we're implementing in a few countries where I'm heading actually after this. And it's a hands-on practical learning approach that helps small-scale farmers, especially women crop cultivators, improve their farms and incomes in the different settings. So moving into examples in practice for nutrition outcomes, CARE is implementing a program here called Catalyzing Strengthened Policy Action for Healthy Diets and Resilience. It's called, it has an abbreviation of CASCADE. And CASCADE is implemented in 6 countries: Benin, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, and Uganda. And among the main aim is basically to improve nutrition and enhance resilience of women farmers in these countries. And the projects are implemented, for example, in Kenya, in 5 counties at the sub-local level. And the main aim here is just to ensure that we have stronger community structures that drive change, that supports, assess, and demands improved implementation of nutrition-related policies and practices at the sub-county level, at the county level, but also linking to the national policies. And one of the ways that we do this is also through, reviewing the different national policies and seeing where the gaps when it comes to nutrition and how do they work with different government institutions to ensure that these elements are well taken into consideration. Our strength is women empowerment, ensuring that empowered women have increased knowledge, skills, and resources to produce, acquire, prepare, and consume healthy diets. We have seen, because of the different climate impacts and affecting, productivity in different regions. One region would just be planting one type of food, for example. And this is not very helpful when you're talking about nutrition, because if a region is only planting potatoes or maize, and basically that is like the staple, how do the community women farmers ensure that that is actually well balanced to ensure that the family is fed a well balanced diet? So through different hands-on training, women in one of the counties, for example, Nyandarua, diversified their crops, integrating vegetables, potatoes alongside maize, and adopted simple, water harvesting and soil management practices that helped their farms withstand the different dry spells. And this in um, in its replication then improves yields, and which also in turn provided or increased steady income and better diets at home. And higher yields meant improved farming techniques and better harvest for the women farmers. We have also seen, how these are linked, and then better nutrition means household meals are now more diverse and nutritious, and we also get to see like we have more empowered households. Gender dialogues led to joint decision making on meals and farming at home, and there is low when you're speaking to these different women and farmers. There's low rates of healthy problems within the family, where now they've become more economically stronger through having maybe more improved farming techniques and better harvest and more yield, but also at the homestead, families are having more healthier foods than just meals that is usually composed of, for example, let's say just starch. And so what we are seeing from these engagements, we are seeing connected food systems, multi-sectoral coordinations, platforms linking health, agriculture, and private sectors for joint nutrition actions. We're also seeing strengthened community structures where the different community dialogues and scorecards are driving accountability for local nutrition service delivery and service providers. And finally, we're also seeing the big, of course, another big game changer is women's empowerment. Women's saving groups and gender dialogues that increase agency in households, nutrition decisions, and also different relevant spaces that women engage in. So I think this is my last slide, John. And how do we do this? Basically, partnering across the different systems, integrating the approaches that I've already shared. We combine policy advocacy, capacity building, and social accountability to turn commitments into actions, and finally driving the shared learning, where there's a lot of cross-learning, sharing, and evidence-based practices to strengthen collective impact. Yeah, so thank you, John, and maybe I've taken more than the time allocated, and back to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much, Marlene and the CARE International team for the thoughtful and grounded presentation, as well as for sharing with us some experience from the global and the local levels. Really appreciate it. And we will also return to these frameworks as well as these actions that you just covered during the panel discussion as well. Marlene will also stay on for the panel discussion. So before we move forward, I just want to invite everyone to please also use the chat box to introduce yourself, your name, your organization, and where you're coming from. And if you have any thoughts throughout this time during the session, please feel free to share your thought through the chats. I also see that there are some questions starting to trickling in. You will have the opportunities to interact with the panelists towards the end of the session. So please keep your questions in your back pocket. You will have the opportunity to ask the questions for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marlene. All right, now let's move to one of the key elements of this global webinar, the panel discussion titled From Framework to Action, Bridging Policy, Practice, and Evidence. The aim of this panel is to explore how different frameworks, whether focused on gender, climate, food system, value chains, or health systems, are actually applied in real-world settings, and what happens when they meet complex reality on the ground. Our panelists will bring complementary perspective across research, programming, and implementation, and I'm delighted to introduce them. First, from the School of Medicine and Dentistry, Griffith University, Australia, we have a recorded contribution from Nyok Hiep Lei, PhD candidate, who will share insights from field-based research and practical methodologies. Second, from World Vision Vietnam, Dr. Ngo Tho Hong, climate change lead, who will be reflecting on implementation experience from climate-related programming. Third, from Health Bridge Foundation of Canada, Nguyen Wan Huan, project manager, who will be sharing experience engaging husband and men to improve maternal and child nutrition among ethnic minority communities. And last, of course, but not least, Marlene from Care International, who is still with us. We kindly ask that Marlene further reflects on how equity and gender frameworks are translated into practice. Thank you all very much again for joining us. The first questions that I will have for all the panelists is, in your view, what does it mean to take an integrated approach to gender, climate, and nutrition? And why is this integration so challenging in practice? And how has your organization addressed these challenges? First, we will go to the video contributions from Griffith University. Nung, if you could play the video from Ngok Hiep Lei, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hiep Lei. I am currently an associate lecturer and a final year PhD candidate at the School of Medicine and Dentistry, Griffith University, Australia. Today, I will be presenting a study entitled Bridging Gender, Climate, and Nutrition to Improve Dietary Diversity among Preschool Children in Drought-Affected Locations in Vietnam, an evidence-led pathway to scalable action. This presentation draws on one of the key findings of my PhD research, which examines how gender dynamics, climate stressors, and nutrition interact in drought-affected communities, and how robust evidence can be systematically translated into scalable and fundable public health interventions. Rather than focusing on individual study findings, today I will highlight the broader research to action pathway, demonstrating how phased mixed methods evidence, combined with participatory co-design, can effectively bridge research, policy, and implementation in climate-sensitive nutrition contexts. This research forms part of a broader program of work based at the School of Medicine and Dentistry, Griffith University, Australia. Our research team focuses on public health nutrition and food security in the context of climate change, with a particular emphasis on vulnerable populations, including women, children, and older adults. The program is led by Associate Professor Hai Feng, together with myself, and is supported by a multidisciplinary team with expertise in public health, health promotion, nutrition, and food security, planetary health, qualitative and mixed methods research, and policy-relevant evidence generation. Importantly, the study I present today represents only one component of a larger, integrated research agenda to improve dietary diversity among preschool children in drought-affected regions. Across this program, we aim not only to document climate-related nutrition vulnerabilities, but also to generate evidence that informs context-responsive, gender-sensitive, and scalable interventions. Okay, to begin with, the gender-climate-nutrition nexus. In the communities where I worked, drought did not just reduce food availability. Over time, it changed how households functioned and who was responsible for care. As working-age adults migrated for jobs, the responsibility for feeding and caring for young children increasingly shifted to those who stayed behind, mostly women and often older women. So nutrition vulnerability emerged not only because food was scarce, but because caregiving responsibilities were concentrated among caregivers with limited resources and support. This gendered shift in care is a key pathway linking climate change to child nutrition outcomes. Okay, moving to the study context. This slide shows where the research took place and why climate matters here. The map highlights Triton District in Anjang Province, where drought severity has been increasing over time. What we see here is not a sudden shock, but a slow onset climate stress, with drought becoming more frequent and more intense. The photos on the right show what this looks like on the ground. Prolonged dry conditions affecting farmland and household food production. So, these data confirm that the study was conducted in a setting of persistent drought with clear implications for livelihoods, food availability, and, ultimately, child nutrition. Therefore, to capture the complexity of gendered nutrition vulnerability under climate stress, my PhD was designed as a three-phase, sequential, and interlinked research program. As you can see, Phase 1 focused on secondary evidence generation. Phase number 2 generated primary, context-specific empirical evidence. And Phase 3 translated this integrated evidence into intervention-ready outputs through participatory co-design. This structure ensured that co-design was evidence-led rather than intuition-driven. Phase 1 comprised 2 studies. The first was a regional policy review analyzing 39 policy documents across 11 Southeast Asian countries and ASEAN. An 8-component food security framework was applied to systematically assess how policies address food security under slow-onset disasters. This analysis revealed that while food production and access are commonly prioritized, utilization-related dimensions, particularly dietary diversity, remain underaddressed. The second study was a mixed methods systematic review, applying the same framework to global adaptation strategies in slow-onset disaster contexts. Using a convergent segregated synthesis approach, the review demonstrated that the strategies mostly focused on ensuring the availability and accessibility of food, while giving little attention to food utilization. These 2 studies jointly established clear policy and evidence gaps that guided the primary research. Phase number 2 adopted a sequential explanatory mixed methods design. Prior to data collection, 2 stakeholder workshops and 6 formative household scoping visits were conducted to refine research objectives and ensure cultural relevance. Study 3 was a cross-sectional survey with 301 caregivers of preschool children. Dietary diversity was assessed using WHO and UNICEF guidelines, complemented by a short validated food frequency questionnaire. Household food availability were also measured using structured indicators, and multivariable analysis identified 6 key determinants of low dietary diversity. These quantitative findings directly informed Study 4, the qualitative phase. Through photo elicitation focus group discussions with caregivers and interviews with local experts, the analysis explained how and why these determinants interact under drought conditions, with particular attention to gendered caregiving constraints. Phase 3 focused on translating this integrated evidence into action. An evidence-informed list of determinants was synthesized from Phase 2 and taken forward into a structured series of co-design workshops with caregivers, health workers, and local stakeholders. Guided by the behavior change wheel, this process identified intervention requirements and materialized context-appropriate solutions targeting capability, opportunity, and motivation. This phase demonstrates how co-design functions not as consultation, but as a translation mechanism, converting robust evidence into feasible, scalable interventions for climate-affected settings. All right. Now, we turn to one of the most important outcomes of my research. Based on the integrated findings across all 3 phases of this research, 4 key actionable areas emerge for funding and implementation. First, strengthening gendered household income and financial resilience, particularly for older female caregivers who often rely on unstable remittances under drought conditions. Second, the development of multi-component nutrition intervention packages that combine food access, nutrition knowledge, and behavior change, rather than relying on standalone education approaches. Third, targeted nutrition and caregiving support for older caregivers, a group that remains largely invisible in mainstream child nutrition programming, despite their central caregiving role in climate-affected households. Fourth, the integration of nutrition interventions with climate-resilient agriculture and food systems, ensuring both sustainability and scalability over time. These 4 areas jointly provide clear entry points for grant funding and program implementation, marking a deliberate shift from evidence generation to action. In addition, one of the most important empirical contributions of my research is the concept of what I term dual left-behind households. In these households, preschool children are left behind as parents migrate for work in response to drought, while older caregivers, most often grandmothers, assume primary responsibility for daily care and feeding. These older caregivers face multiple intersecting constraints, including chronic health conditions, limited nutrition knowledge, financial dependence on remittances, and responsibility for caring for multiple young children. This dual vulnerability, where both children and their primary caregivers are simultaneously left behind, is rarely addressed explicitly in nutrition policy or climate adaptation programming. Yet it plays a central role in shaping dietary diversity and everyday feeding practices under climate stress. From this research, 3 key lessons emerge for policy and practice. First, gender and age must be treated as core determinants of nutrition vulnerability, not as subgroups or add-ons. The evidence shows that older female caregivers play a central role in child nutrition under climate stress, yet they remain largely invisible within existing nutrition and climate policies. Second, co-design should span the entire research policy implementation continuum. When co-design is limited to the implementation stage, it risks addressing symptoms rather than underlying drivers. Embedding co-design from evidence generation through to intervention development strengthens relevance, ownership, and long-term sustainability. Third, mixed methods evidence substantially enhances scalability and funding readiness. Quantitative data establishes magnitude and patterns, while qualitative insights explain mechanisms and lived realities. Together, they provide the level of confidence required by policymakers and funders to invest in scale-up. Thank you very much for your attention and for taking the time to engage with this presentation. Due to time constraints and the time difference, it is currently midnight here in Australia, and I am therefore unable to participate in the live discussion session. Nevertheless, our team would very much welcome opportunities for future collaboration, including research partnerships and joint grant funding applications. If you would like to discuss this work further, please feel free to contact Associate Professor Haifeng or myself via the email addresses shown on the slide. Thank you again, and I very much look forward to potential collaboration.
Thank you so much, Hiep Le and the Griffith University team for a very comprehensive presentation. Without further ado, I think I would like to kindly invite Hong from the World Vision Vietnam to also share your thoughts on this topic as well, please. You have 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, from World Vision perspective, we see that the climate change, gender inequality, and malnutrition are not separate problems, and it interconnected driver of the vulnerability. So I would like to show in short a video clip that can show how World Vision Vietnam are doing right now, and then I will have the conclusion remark. Thank you.
nấu ăn. Từ khi có bếp mới, con cảm thấy dễ thở hơn và mẹ cũng đỡ vất vả. Con mong rằng các bạn nhỏ đều có một ngôi nhà sạch sẽ và an toàn như vậy.
Yes, so through the video that we can see that what we are doing right now in Vietnam with our own program. So we saw clearly that from here research and also from my video clip that yeah, the drought and flooding are directly affected to the food availability and livelihood, and they are not a gender neutral. So the woman often lost the land, income, time, and decision-making power. So they still need to carry out the responsibility for food preparation, care, and health. So we saw that it leads to poor nutrition and health outcome, and particularly for children and the women. And we saw very clearly that climate stress makes a gender impact on the livelihood and care. And then it change in food and nutrition. And of course, finally, it come to the health and the well-being outcome. So we planning to design the intervention that address all the dimensions together rather than just a single effort. And it also the more challenges for us to make that. You see that almost every grant is only focused on the just a single effort. Someone for health, someone for gender, some the other for climate change, some other also for nutrition. Yeah, kind of the activity is separately and with different scenario, indicator, and the timeline. So the second thing is the woman unpaid care work and the poverty and the role in food security is not clearly defined, but we know that it frequently overlooked. So the capacity and evidence gap here is we need to make an integrated program to show all everything in one that we discussed by today. And how the World Vision doing to address those challenges? Yes, I'm very interested in Hiệp Ngọc Lê research. And World Vision is not a research think tank, but we're also starting to do some collaboration with the university to do the research. And what we want here is we try to develop the integrated interventions that based on the research evidence that we have already mentioned. And we intended to use integrated framework like gender, climate change, and nutrition, and to analyze the climate shock through the gender and nutrition lens. Yeah, not only climate change itself. And of course, in World Vision Vietnam and even World Vision International, we have a program. It's called Environment Sustainability and Climate Action. And on that program, we integrated every corner, every angle of the impact from the climate change, and we focus on the community-led. We believe that for climate change adaptation mitigation is a local level action is very important because the challenge is different from this area to the other, from this country to other country. And the woman center model is very important. We heard from the care that we also have the woman empower program. and we have the funding that can help the woman led for the community-led initiative. And we just linkage the livelihood program to the nutrition and the resilience, and we combining the natural farming and saving the roof and diversify the production of the food and behavior change for the nutrition and health. So in general, World Vision just doing the adding gender nutrition to the climate action project and design the system level solution that builds resilience and equity and children well-being and the vulnerable children and also the woman vulnerable on our program. Yeah, I think that in the conclusion, we expected that we should have a very strong networking to discuss about the collaboration from the university, think tank, and the NGO, and also the local actor on this issue, on the gender, climate change, nutrition, nexus. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hong, for your insights, your opinion, and for sharing as well the very interesting videos from World Vision. Integrated approach is the key here. Thank you so much. Next, may I kindly invite Huan from HealthBridge to please state your thoughts and suggestion on this topic, please. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and hello everyone. So, warm greeting from HealthBridge, Vietnam. So, from the beginning to now, we heard a lot about the women empowerment and a lot of activities to support women. And this, my sharing will be a little bit different to talk about men engagement and how HealthBridge do that. And it can be said that we can call men empowerment for mother and child health. Especially, my sharing will be a little bit about how to improve the antenatal care and nutrition for ethnic minorities in Vietnam. So we have some nutrition and mother and child health program in Sơn La province. This is a mountain areas in the northwest of Vietnam, and 80% of the population are ethnic minority, mainly are Thai people. And of course, because of their remote areas, so the child stunting is very high, about like more than 30%. So you can imagine like many ethnic minorities in Vietnam, people often live in the mountain area and with difficult conditions. And for many women, especially the Hmong women with the community we work, the pregnancy and child birth are not decisions that the women they can make on their own, and most women depend on the husband or the husband families. For example, because of like long distances, dangerous roads, and the fact that many women don't know how to ride motorbikes, and mother, of course, rely on the husband, on other family members to take them to the health facility for ANC care or delivery. Another like cultural norm still exists in the community is that the women they do not allow anyone outside of their family to see their private parts, and husband also refuse to let the male health workers assist their wives. So that also another difficult factor. And in one community we work, about 90% of the village health workers are men. This you can imagine the situation. So well, that's why the home deliveries still exists and quite high in those communities. So before the conducting some activity with men, we have a survey, and from the survey we see that we see that husband they often accompany their wives to the health facility, but they just waiting outside. They don't participate in any consulting sessions, and um, that's only like more than like 1 in 4 couples. They discuss about where they will give birth. And then we see this is not only the challenges, but also the clear opportunities. And men already play a very key role in bringing their wives and children to the health facilities. So instead of waiting outside, we invited uh, them to join the education sessions or the ANC sex ANC care through the community dialogues. We promote men's roles in caring for their wives and children. So for many husbands, it is like sometimes like the first time about they heard and they heard about the nutrition or they heard about the importance of nutrition in the first 1,000 days, they or they understand about the direct effects if the baby becomes stunted or uh, so. mm, or the or like dangerous size of the mothers during the pregnancy or delivery, and 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 then after the some intervention and some community dialogues, we also see the increase in the percentage of the engagement of husbands. um, for example, like we see the increase in the husband accompany their wives to attend the ANC care from 60% to 80%, or the increase in terms of like the dialogues between couples to uh, to discuss about the where to give birth and also to prepare the financial plan for the delivery. And at the end, the home deliveries also reduce. So this is not about like the percentage increase. It is a story that the changes when and the opportunities uh, to engage men uh, in the in the uh, improvement for the mother and child health. So when father step forward, when father take their roles and responsibility, especially in the community where the women uh, have the don't have the limited decision making power, or the because of the geographic isolation. I think men can be very important role and to support for the mother and child health, especially for the ANC services and access to the health services. So this is the very like brief sharing from my side to how to engage men and how to in the mother and child health program. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Juan. What a fascinating program or project in engaging husbands and men to improve maternal and child nutrition among ethnic minority communities. I know that a lot of people might be interested in this, so please feel free to ask one question right after this. I'm looking at the time. If it's okay with you, Marlene, since we already heard a wonderful presentation from you, I would just move on to the Q&A session so that we can get into the interactive part of our session. So I would like to invite our participants to, after hearing such a wonderful and insightful information and experience from our speakers, our panelists, please feel free to ask questions by turning on your microphone or putting your questions in the chat please feel free to do so. And okay, I see the first question from Kanuma Kietsongsak, please. Thank you.
Hi. Would you still like me to put it in the chat or can I just
No, please feel free to just ask your question verbally. You have the floor, Kanuma. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kanuma Kiesongsak. I'm an independent consultant based in Bangkok, Thailand, and I have a question for the panelists. So, from your experience, what role can Civil Society Alliance play in ensuring that climate or nutrition planning process are gender responsive and inclusive? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, Ganuma. Let me try to recap your questions. So you're asking that what role can civil society alliances can play in ensuring that climate or nutrition planning process and plans are gender responsive and inclusive? Interesting. Any of our panelists would like to take that question, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. I can take that, or I can break the ice, and my fellow panelists would come in. So I think as the CSOs, we have a very big role to ensure that we are very intentional on our program implementation and engagement at different levels. And I would basically refer to the different tools that I have, for example, shared that we are using at CARE. And I am sure that there are different approaches and tools that really work well in different contexts. But just to ensure that there's that intentionality when you're inviting people or participants in your engagements, intentionality about having men and women and girls in your meetings, in your sessions, intentionality about ensuring there is active participation. But most importantly, what really helps is to do some good analysis and engagement with communities, because using some of these tools, for example, the CVCA and others really provide a very good opportunity to understand the different vulnerabilities, and therefore you find that the engagements are more targeted, and you are addressing actually the problems that are the barriers, and not just from the overall maybe sessions or meetings, but when we go in depth with analysis, it really helps to get the key elements that are usually very helpful to ensure that the programs are gender responsive and inclusive. We have seen this and this applies across the different actually spaces at the local, at the region, and also at the global level. And maybe I can leave it at that point and see if another panelist would come to like to take that, so that I don't take much time there.
All right, thank you so much, Marlene. Any other panelists would also like to take that question? Juan, I see you online.
Yeah, I
Yes.
just want to say very quick response that, of course, our civil society play very important role on that, and especially for the the monitoring and the implementation of policies. So in one example that Vietnam country, in like I think 2 years ago we form we support we organize like multi-sectoral monitoring visits, which include the government officials and the civil society members. Together, we team up with we team up a team, and then we organize the field trip for the to go to different provinces and to monitor and to do some interview with the beneficiaries and other stakeholders, so that on the government officials as well as the civil society members, we discuss and we like how to we measure the genders and gender responsive in the government policies.
Thank you so much, Juan. All right, that was a great insights from both Marlene and Juan. Thank you so much, Kanuma, for that questions. I'm looking at the chat right now. The first question that I see is from, sorry if I pronounce your name not correctly, Susita Roy. What are a few good policy recommendations to integrate gender, nutrition, and climate crisis? Anyone would like to take that?
John, come again.
Sure.
Yes,
What
and
are a
yeah.
what are a few good policy recommendations to integrate gender, nutrition, and climate crisis?
Recommendations to integrate.
Policy-related recommendations. What kind of policy, I think?
Okay. From the programs that Cascade is implementing in the 6 countries that I shared, we are looking at the different national policies. For example, the national adaptation plans, because these are key national policies that countries use, and they're also key directing elements that are used for funding, but also give direction to what the country is doing. So targeting some of these key um, they are being downscaled to different levels at the sub-local. And so have been targeting some of the key national policies. For example, the national adaptation plans has been one of our target policies to ensure that we are having nutrition elements well captured in, especially when they're being revised or being developed. And for gender and climate, for example, you find that the NAPs are already integrating these elements, gender and climate. So for us, one of the biggest gaps that we've been looking out for has been the nutrition elements. Because there are other bodies that are probably working on gender, on climate. So it depends. For our context for these 6 countries, our focus is more nutrition, but for other countries, it could be that there are gaps on gender integration and also climate. So, but targeting the national policies, key national policies would be a good entry point. And then because these are the policies that are being downscaled to sub-local level. So that is the experience that we're seeing sharing from the programs that we're implementing on nutrition and gender. Thanks.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marlene. Yes.
Following Mandela discussion, I would ask some information from Vietnam that yes, sometimes if we have a chance to work on the government level, we can make the advocacy that can change the policy. Yeah, but however, just still to say the truth that it's quite challenging and time consuming to make the policy change, because it says that it is a government decision to make a change, not our NGO or civil society. And we also doing some advocacy at the grassroots level. So based on the government policy and the orientation for the nutrition and net zero climate change adaptation mitigation, we try to develop a very good case study, best lesson learned, and we can document it and to make the implementation guideline that suitable with the local context, and we can have the people to carry out the policy at the grassroots level. And also, the same with one that we also have the men care program in Vietnam for the gender issue. Yeah. So for the woman gender equality, it's not only woman focus. We also focus on the men and to have the men to support on the just say the care work at the community, as a family, and also including the health and nutrition for children. Yes, over.
Thank you so much, both Hong and Marlene, for that answers. Since you already have the floor, Hong, there's a question to World Vision. How are we cascading and integrating the national climate policy and existing forest protection framework to ensure vulnerable populations are aware of their rights and hold duty bearers and decision makers more accountable? This is from Cyrus Cooper from Liberia.
Yes, so in Vietnam, we have like a national action plan. And then World Vision Vietnam at biggest think tank, and we have been here for quite a long time with the good human resources and also the finance support. So we ha we have to the local community and the local government to implement the need on the just say a smart program on the climate, the smart agriculture that can produce more food and agricultural products, so can help for the nutrition and health program. You see that, for example, we say about the cook stove, and it's very much related to the environment and the climate change and the reduction of the greenhouse gas. But with a very good cook, so we can support the children and the woman with a good meal and the more yes, just more delicious meal. Yeah, I mean.
Thank you, Hong. Next question. Didn't specify any particular panelist, but the question is, what low-cost solution can rural women use to maintain nutrition during droughts or flood? And on another matter, which intervention have shown the strongest impact across all three areas, being gender, climate, and nutrition? This is from Gorata Kevin Machika. Who will take that, please? Thank you. Low-cost solutions to maintain nutrition during droughts or floods. Any takers?
Yeah, John, thanks. I think maybe just sharing also from the examples of the work that I presented, through the different hands-on training, the simple water harvesting and soil management practices has really helped the women to withstand dry spells, especially with their farms. And so during the drought seasons, with if they have done some good water harvesting techniques, they would have some surplus to irrigate their small vegetable farms that they are tendering to during the drought season. So this one we have seen in Nyandarua, in Machakos, that's the different counties that has really helped the simple water harvesting techniques and also soil management practices has really helped women farmers withstand the different dry spells during the drought seasons or the high lack of rain seasons. And maybe to add on to the second question, I'm not sure whether I got that correctly. But I think for us, what has really worked well in the Nexus is the gender and actually all of them, because the drought, for example, or the lack of good nutritious food is also caused by the climate change problem. And so being able to bring this expertise together, because care or focus has always been women and girls and women empowerment and gender equality. So it's been easy because also we're implementing a lot of climate programs and the different tools that we're using. So it's been this the approach for the three, I wouldn't say maybe gender and nutrition has worked well, but for us, I think because these are very strong areas, especially gender and climate is our strong entry point, then it's easy for us to translate some of these outcomes to addressing the challenges around nutrition. So that would be my response to that. So, but I think number one was it's more important to understand the different structural differences in the communities that we are working, and then understanding the climate programs or that is leading to lack of best nutrition programs or meals, and then it's easier to start providing solution from there.
Thank you so much, Marlene. I'm looking at the time. The time moves really fast when we have a good time, right? So I'm afraid this would have to be the last question, the following question. To Marlene as well, how does women's decision-making power, access to climate resilient resources, including land, finance, technology, and participation in local governance affect nutrition outcomes at household and community levels?
How the women participation affect the outcomes positively or negatively?
I think both. The person Yogesh didn't specify.
I would look at it positively because because it can also be negatively if we don't engage men and boys. It could result to negative impacts or results because then we have seen in situations where this culture is a main challenge, then men feel like you want to takes power because there is the structural issue that is in the community. But when we are also engaging men and boys, we see very positive change because the women are able to meaningfully engage in these different spaces, but also meaningfully ensure that their household has developed the economy muscle and they're able to have like good meals that are balanced, but also through the different engagement process, they have surplus that they can be able to sell and also showcase and teach others. So I think what we have seen so far is more of a positive outcome when women engagement and empowerment helps them to participate in these processes. But we've also seen before, if we do not meaningfully engage men and boys, then the project sometimes turn out not in a very positive way, because then changing the norms and structures need to have the different strategies that ensure that all the groups are participating, but also our men and fathers and boys understand maybe why are we targeting to strengthen women in participation in this decision making, but doesn't really necessarily mean they are replacing them in the different structures, power structures available. So there are different strategies that CARE uses to ensure that really works. And I think I will add this in the presentation when I'm sharing again. And if you get into the slide 7 and 8, you'll see some of the different strategies that we use to ensure that the outcomes are more positive than negative, and which strategies we are using to engage men and boys, just like my fellow panelists was discussing of how they're engaging fathers in the process. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marlene. I'm very sorry to say that we're at the end of the session. But the good news is this won't be the last webinar that we will have. So we'll have more opportunities to engage and interact again in the next webinar that we will be organizing. So thank you very much for the thoughtful questions and reflections shared today. To briefly summarize a few key takeaways. So gender, climate, and nutrition are deeply interconnected, and addressing them together leads to more sustainable and equitable outcomes. Secondly, frameworks and tools are important, but real progress depends on how they are adapted and applied in specific contexts. And last but not least, what works and for whom depends on who has a voice, who makes decisions, and who is included. This plays out at multiple levels, as our panelists said, within household, communities, and within the institution that design and deliver policies and programs. When women have greater say and real opportunities to act, outcomes for nutrition, health, and climate resilience tend to be stronger and more lasting. And as mentioned, this webinar marks the starting point of our global learning series. In our next session, which will be on the 11th of February, we will dive deeper into practical approaches, building on today's shared foundation and moving further towards action. Thank you once again to our speakers, our panelists, and all of you for your active participation. We very much look forward to continuing this learning journey together, and have a wonderful day, and goodbye for now. Please take care. Thank you so much.